So, better Facebook. The title here is Controlling the Uncontrollable. And small confession here, there was a little bit of marketing in that title, right? We're all supposed to be marketers, and like, you got to have something catchy. I'm like, we'll talk about the impossible things. So before we get much further, thank you guys for having me. Interesting route the way I got here. I'm actually an aspiring musician, trumpet player, a band nerd, all the way to the core, like deep down inside. Thank you. I hear one of you out there. Somebody, there it is. Then I went into the restaurant business for a while, and then somehow I made this weird jump from the restaurant business to marketing. I don't know, maybe I didn't like coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning, but these people and the people that, if you go to the restaurants, just take good care of those folks. They're fantastic people, right? So control, before we go much further, I better explain myself. So control, in a sense, I'm not talking to, none of us can control anything, right? There's not an absolute control, especially not in Facebook. So what we're talking about, according to Webster's here, is kind of the second version of that definition of control, which is just putting some suitable controls in place. How do we put a control around things? How do we test things in a way that we can collect the right kind of data, make the right kind of decisions, and move forward? So hopefully when we're done here today, I'll give you a couple things. One, either you'll look at things hopefully a little bit different. Maybe you'll take a different perspective on something you're already doing. And if I'm really lucky, I might actually teach you something that someone else taught me because of all the fantastic people that I've worked with. So here's the agenda. This is very aggressive for 30 minutes, and there's this big clock in front of me. You should all come see this. It's very intimidating. I've got 28 minutes and 16 seconds to get done. So if I talk too fast, it's the responsibility of you in the front to wave your hands at me and tell me to slow down. Social consumer journey, we'll talk about this a little bit. Facebook ad delivery, and social trends. Not three mind-blowing topics. I've been set in several classes today and yesterday, and there are things that have been talked about already, but let's see if we can take a little different approach. As marketers, we all have goals, right? We're all trying to accomplish something. And one at the top, I think we can all kind of raise our hands to that's the one everybody wants, right? Whether you're the business, whether you're the agency, whether you're the sole proprietor, whatever the case is, you're trying to get somebody more business. The others are, they're all part of that, right? You get impressions. You have these awareness plays. This is a fun one, reputation management. Oh my gosh, somebody said really bad things about me. How do I fix it? How to make it go away? Well, you shouldn't have done the thing that made them say something bad anyway, but that's nor here nor there. Or traffic, right? There's a lot of things we're trying to accomplish. But to be able to accomplish these things, we have to know who it is that we're trying to accomplish these things for. So that's where this idea of a consumer journey comes in, right? This probably isn't new news or a mystery to anybody, but let me kind of, bear with me as we kind of go through this, and maybe we'll bring something out here that might be a little bit different. Who's seen one of these? Something like this? Nobody? Yeah, I see a couple hands. I wish I could see more, but this thing, this is, trust me. So here's an example of a consumer journey, right? We start one place, we go something else, we watch something, we go to Facebook, we ask for a recommendation. We could go through this, and there's 100 different versions of this and a million different ways to cut this. But what are the results? Why do we actually try to do this? This one, I believe, was an actual example we used for a moving company, but we do this because we're trying to get some results out of it, some things we're trying to uncover. So if you do a consumer journey, you're not looking for these specific things, I would ask you to stop and reconsider how you're doing your consumer journey. One, persona. It's probably an overused word, but we're trying to design the specific person, right, that follows this particular journey to get to where we're going. Two, we're trying to uncover pain points. How many times have you sat down maybe with your client, gone through this consumer journey, you're like, I just can't check out. Like I hit this cart thing and I'm trying to hit that and it just doesn't go, right? Or you're trying to find a particular product or service on a website and you can't find it. There's pain points you find within the consumer journey also. Selfishly, marketers, there's a part of that's a media placement, right? Like this is where you strategically insert, hey, you know, you're a university. Have you thought about pushing enrollments on Snapchat? Or have you thought about doing this over here or doing this over there? This is kind of where you insert those elements. And buying cycles. I see this overlooked way too often. This particular consumer journey we've mapped, does it take 7 days? Does it take 6 months? Does it take, how long does it take? All these are data points you can start to compile to take yourself to the next step. And then the other one we're always trying to find is targeting. As elusive as targeting may be, you think you got it, it moves. You think you got it, it moves. You think you got it, it moves. There's always trying to find what this targeting element piece is. But we've done all this work now, right? If you've done this right, you have these results from this consumer journey. Maybe 1 version, 2 versions, 3 versions, whatever the case may be. If you stop and think, if we've done all this work, we've done all this great strategery, right? It's all in place. That was a Ryan Miller word, by the way, strategery. It's a real word if you talk to Ryan Miller. What do we really want? We have to have 2 things to move forward from here. We have to capture in some way the undivided attention of that consumer. You can use consumer loosely here. It can be the consumer of the content or it can be the consumer of the goods. Doesn't matter. If we don't get their attention, doesn't matter. We can do all the planning in the world, but if they never look at what we're doing, we don't get anywhere, right? You never actually get to that action, what you're trying to take them, what you're trying to get them to do. And then what they see when they get there is things we've all done, right? Content. There's that particular piece. It's a big, broad term. Right? It could be any type of media, doesn't matter, but have to get the eyeballs on it. You have to have something for them to take a look at. Who's seen one of these? Confession, this is probably the first content plan I did. Interesting of Mindy Rayer sitting on the left. I just hadn't seen her in years and years. This is probably a template she gave me. I don't know. But this was the extent of my content plan. Like it was, here's my social sites and here's the days, and that was it. And if I did that, I was feeling good. Like I am planned. When I get these eyeballs, they're going to see this. Eventually, we evolved a little bit because we figured that wasn't going to get us where we need to go. Ooh, and then we did it in a Word doc, right? I got the links, and I got the thing, and I got these aspect ratio bent and twisted images, and I'm hoping that the client really likes what they're seeing. Maybe if you took a lot of time, you'd turn it into a PowerPoint. And this is just Content 101. Remember where we're at. There was a moment in time we're trying to get someone's attention, and this is what we showed them. This is how we planned it. If you're really good, if you got to 201, then you start adding this other level. It's like, okay, if you just now have never heard about me, I'm going to show you this. This is kind of that awareness-based content stuff. And after you've seen that, the next one, I'm going to write some content specifically around maybe their decision making. And then now I'm going to stick it to them, and this is the call to action, the strong stuff, right? You start stacking all your content. You have all these other modifiers for your content. Now, disclaimer, if my team that I work with, a fantastic group of people I work with, if they saw this, they would hang me because I don't have the bell at the bottom, right? The whole advocacy piece and people talk about in your reviews. So if you're in here, take it easy on me later. So we have all this stuff done. So we're done, right? That's all the content we need. We have put all the controls in place we possibly need. It's not true. Let me give you a little scenario. This is what we got out of our consumer journey. The persona. I'll use me as an example here. So between 40 and 45, I live in the suburbs, right? You got me tagged. Right? I've got 3 kids, one of them in college, right? I would earlier said I was having a midlife crisis, but I've learned earlier that it's not. It's just upside down you, right? If you all part of that one, right? Targeting, right? You've got me pegged. You've got the right piece of content. You know, I'm an emotional kind of guy. You've looked at all the psychographics, and I'm a guy that likes my children to know how to use their hands and go have green time. I think is what we learned a little while ago, right? Got to know how to use tools. You got all the tactics. You want me to take whatever action it is. It's casual. It's buying something or clicking on something. But I don't do it. We did all that work. You got my attention. There's another variable here that I'm going to challenge all of you to think about when you think about content. Think about the moment when I was actually on social. Let's just use social, for example, in this instance. I came to Facebook, right? Every time I go to Facebook, I'm there for a different length of time. And all of us are guilty. Sometimes I just open it, I'm looking at it. How many of you have to clear the little red bubble? I've heard several speakers talk about this. Some of you have to clear the red bubble. I'm not that person. So if you're that kind of, I would drive you nuts. I think mine shows like 173 right now. And I know I got to get to them eventually, right? But sometimes it's just going in there and just doing that. I'm there for 30 seconds. If it's a Saturday morning and the kids aren't up yet, I'm there for 45 minutes. I'm enjoying myself and my coffee, right? But I'm also in a different mode, depending on what has been done and what my day has looked like. Sometimes I'm there very passively. If I'm at gymnastics class with my 4.5-year-old, there are people around me and I'm just kind of, I'm not really reading anything, but it's that same content we spent all this time working on, right? Sometimes it's very intentional. Sometimes I'm there because I'm looking for something. Marketplace, I'm very intentional. I just went and picked up a cord of firewood. If you've never made a teenage son load the back of a pickup truck with a cord of firewood, it's a great exercise. You just have them do that, just as a point. But here, back to this moment. There's a specific moment in time that I don't think we are considering as marketers when we write content. If you're trying to get me to act with something that you want at the end, at a marketer, you have to follow not only all the other planning pieces put in content, on the content already, but you have to put controls in place. I challenge you to think about how long am I going to be there? How long do I have to digest that information? And what mode am I in? Is this a passive run through this social platform, or is this a very intentional ask? And the things that we're not tracking today, if you put them in place, what you'll see is all the content has been generated. There's going to have to be different versions of this content. And I would challenge this. If I'm just going to look, it better be a pretty bold image, because it's got to be something that's finger stopping good, right? I'm just going through, right? But if I got more time to spend there, maybe it's a video, maybe it's a carousel, maybe it's 5 or 6, maybe it's a carousel that looks like a slideshow, whatever the case is. something we don't consider about the moment. Put yourselves in the shoes of the consumer sitting right there. How long are they going to spend on that piece of content? And what mode are they in? Are they very intentional, or is it something that's passive? I think what you'll find is if you do this, let's go back to the scenario we had before. You already have me pegged, right? 40, 45, live in the suburbs, 3 kids, blah, 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 fast forwarding. What you'll find is on the weekdays, you've already learned that that's the best time to target parents. 6:30 to 10:30, right? Everybody's going to bed, we're getting dinner, what the case is. But if you target me on the weekday and the evening, guys, I'm not going to buy anything because the Wi-Fi, I'm a savvy digital shopper, right? And the Wi-Fi at the Woga gym isn't secure, so I'm not about to pull out my credit card. That's not going to happen. But if you catch me on a Saturday morning with my coffee in one hand, my credit card's in the other. So I'm asking you to think about the way you write content from the moment, the social moment, when someone is actually digesting that content. Fair enough? Moving on. So now we have all our stuff, right? We've talked about content enough and how we're going to get our attention and taking some other considerations to how we write content. Facebook ad delivery. We have all these things, right? Before you can talk about an ad, you have to have all this stuff in place. You've got your ad, I don't know how much money you're going to spend, what tactics you're going to try, the targeting is going to be. Who knows this formula? There's other people have probably talked about it. I'm going to change it just a little bit. Everybody know this one? I don't see any hands, so I'm going to take a little bit of time to go through some of these pieces. So this is the bidding formula that Facebook decides to use, how they calculate a point value system every time there's an opportunity for your ad to be shown to someone that falls within your target audience if you've allocated you want to be shown to. The first two here, bid and EAR, we'll go over those. Those are very advertiser focused. And the last one is very consumer focused, right? So we'll go over each one of these in detail. The bid, it's just that. How much are you willing to pay? The most important thing here is it's exactly what it's worth for you to pay for something. So if you want someone to convert on something, make sure that cost is taken into account. We'll talk some more specifics in just a moment. EAR. We all love our 3-letter acronyms, right? In marketing, we should have this universal periodic table of 3-letter acronyms. It would be the most amazing piece of information ever. But this is estimated action rate. Facebook doesn't give you any insight into this, though. When you're going, you're building an ad, right? You can kind of see what this potential audience is going to be, and your numbers change. Remember that little dial on the right? It goes back and forth. But nobody tells you. Facebook doesn't tell you what's the estimated action rate. How likely is someone to take this action? To just look at something. How likely are they to engage with something? How likely are they to convert with something? They don't give you that, but I'll kind of give you a little bit of a shortcut there. And the last one is user value. That's the assessment that Facebook makes around whether or not this is going to be valuable to you, to your experience within Facebook, right? Because if it's not valuable to you, you leave the platform, you go somewhere else, right? And naturally, that's not what Facebook's looking to do. I think we'll see some of the trends coming in the future. You'll be able to do almost everything you need to do all within Facebook, all in one place, right? So bid. Here's some takeaways. So if this formula is being used every time you have potential, naturally we want to make sure that we exercise any actions, any steps we can to put ourselves in the best possible position to have the highest total score to make sure our ad is shown. Bid. Make sure it's a formidable bid. I'm not telling you to be aggressive. Don't be over-aggressive, right? But it's got to be something that makes sense. Too many times I'm like, well, if I get 100 conversions and I am willing to pay $4, people start doing the math backwards. Because you have to remember, right? I think we forget sometimes that just because you're bidding a certain amount doesn't mean you're going to pay that all the time. Arguably, they're going to push you a little closer to that, depending on what your bid strategies are, whether you're talking about target bids and cost caps, and we can have a whole other session just on bidding if you want. But I want to also tell you, make sure you bid for the right action. What I mean by bid for the right action is I've seen a lot of people make the mistake of saying, okay, I want conversions, right? Did you ever notice that when you go into Facebook and you build, this is not on the slides, by the way, and you go to build an ad, there's 3 different sections, right? There's awareness, there's consideration, and conversion. It's kind of funny how it falls right down the funnel the same way. So you would think, if I'm going for conversions, it's also going to give me clicks and it's also going to give me impressions, right? It doesn't do that. It's literally looking at the person that it thinks is going to convert. And if that's the second value, if you notice these two, they're a multiplier. Your bid and your estimated action rate are a multiplier. So they exponentially increase your chance of your particular ad being shown. So make sure it's the right action. Don't bid for clicks if you're really just wanting to get an impression. Don't bid for conversions if you're really also wanting the clicks. Make sure you're going for that specific thing. So just make sure you're bidding based on that action value, right? And that action value can be different things. And we all know as your relationship grows with a client, if you're on the agency side or if you're the sole proprietor side or you as a business, you know what all those pieces are, right? If your website converts at a particular rate, when someone gets there, you know what your action costs or what that end goal is going to be, and just do the math backwards, right? We could all model that out. Everyone know how to get to that. Estimated action rate. This is the second part of the multiplier, right? These two, remember, these two make things go up. The last one's kind of icing on the cake. If Facebook doesn't tell you what the estimated action rate is, then we're just kind of guessing. How many of you use audience insights within your business manager functions? I see lots of hands go up. That's awesome. Did you know, this is a fun fact. Now, I'm not picking on anybody in the room, and I'm scared because I see all ladies in the front row. So, men, if something gets thrown at me, you guys got to come help me here. Did you know that in the state of Texas, women are 50% more likely to click on an ad than a man? And Audience Insights just gives you that. You just pull it up. I can tell you the estimated action rate for women, you have 50%, a 100% better chance of a woman clicking on an ad. So if my particular objective here is clicks, it makes sense to start with women and then add to my audience later, right? In Georgia, I don't know why I picked Georgia, I'll be honest. It's 70% more likely that a woman clicks on those than a man. So I would encourage you use Audience Insights for all of Facebook and be mindful about how you segment that out, how you pull that down to understand what those action rates are. It's the only place where Facebook gives us a signal about what the action rate is for your particular audience. There's some assumptions you can make too around comments and around engagements and other elements, but a very, very valuable tool to be able to kind of get a head start on this estimated action rate value number. And I've already kind of mentioned this once. You have to say it again. Actions are not tag-alongs. There's no cornucopia of things. Just because you get one doesn't mean you're going to get all the others. So be very intentional about what you bid for. Okay, the last one. This is the plus. We multiplied these first, and we just add this onto it, right? So it's an important piece. It's also the consumer-facing piece. So depending on where your opinions are around Facebook, if they're out there to make money or they're out there to be a great platform, this may be kind of telling, right? But it's a free platform. Don't get us wrong. They're trying to sell us things, right? And that's how they subsidize that platform. The user value is something that's predicted by Facebook. You may have remembered about a year ago, they put together actual people, right? And they put this audience together and said, okay, take a look at this particular piece of creative, judge whether or not you think it's going to be right for this person, put your insights into machine learning, and machine learning as an engine has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. They seem to be very happy with it. You'll start to see some other signals around this as you start to look at some of the new relevance, right? The engagement ranking, right? Conversion rate ranking, quality rate ranking. Those are things that are coming out of this kind of machine learning piece now. I would tell you to use those pieces in a way that makes sense, right? If your user value is something that's based on your relevance, how do you kind of, there's not a way to hijack this, but there is a successful way to make sure that you're in the best possible scenario. I would tell you first to make sure you hone that audience with an appetite to see page posts, to see content from you before you start pushing ads on them. I've heard it several times over the last day and a half or so. Stop selling things, just start telling people things, right? Start giving people an idea of who it is you're about and what you're about instead of trying to get them to buy something from you all the time. If you've made sure that you've shown content to those people, this audience first, and then you run ads to them, one, not only do you have a general idea of what it is they're wanting to see, but you also have naturally found a way to make this, you've implied this action rate, this user value, that's going to be increased for you. The last one is, if this is on the right trajectory and you're doing everything right, you have to look at where someone lands when they leave Facebook. Facebook will almost tell you directly, if someone has to click back out of an ad, it is poisoning your user value. So you have to make sure if you're going to let someone click out of Facebook to go somewhere else, if you don't take anything else of this user value piece from here, please make sure that page loads about that fast. Because if it takes time, if someone clicks your ad, leaves, and they click back to Facebook, you're automatically at a 0 for user value. So you get absolutely no credit for that piece, okay? Awesome. Last thing, I'm very, very fortunate to be able to work for a large company. We have a couple thousand ad accounts we get to look at any particular day. So there's a lot of data we can pull kind of at scale. Some of these things I tell you, you may debate me, and that's okay. This is where my book of business lies and things that we're seeing. You're just going to see a couple different categories here. We've got some insights, some things that we see coming, And then some trends, some insights. We see this, like we can validate this with numbers, and some trends, some things that we're starting to notice. If you see them, just nod with me. Alex can tell if you hadn't because you look at me like I'm crazy, but that's okay. So hopefully these give you some things, maybe some guidance for what you're doing with your own Facebook moving forward. One, this was pulled from about 5,000 different creatives that we looked at and creative types as we go. It's pretty difficult, believe it or not, to actually take all your ads and ad sets and label each type of creative type. For one time, you would have said video is the best creative type you can have. Video, 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 video. I will tell you, interesting about video is impressions are really expensive on video, if you haven't noticed. If you're only the ad that has a video as the medium, your impressions are always going to be more expensive. That makes sense, right? Because you can't create as many impressions because you're sitting there watching it longer. I didn't see it till I saw the numbers. So what we've seen really rise is multimedia carousels, meaning 4 or 5 slides that we're using, but of different types. Static image, GIF, video. When those things feel more like an experience, that creative type is performing much, much better than any static image, than any video on its own across the board. And that's really just about any objective within awareness consideration. I'll be honest, I can't speak to that for kind of conversion-based objectives. We haven't got that. I don't have enough of a sample size to kind of give you that trend. But I can tell you that your multimedia carousels right now, for me, are the highest performing creative type that we have. So that's one. Here's an insight. This is something I can put down. I alluded to this a little while ago. An active social community in that Facebook page, those will positively impact your social ad performance on behalf of that same page. I don't know when you set up an ad account, you have to link it to a page, right? If that is a page that has been cultivated, if that is a page that has been loved on, that is a page that has been engaged with, and you run ads there, those ads perform better. I see too many times where people decide, oh, you know what, we're doing display, and we're doing search engine marketing, we're doing all these other things. Let's just add some social ads in. That's another placement, right? But they haven't done anything else with that community. You're starting yourself at a handicap. The estimated action rate, we haven't established any of those, and the user value is not where it needs to be either at that point. So we've seen anything, I'll quote some numbers here. I'm not going to put them on the slide. We can talk about them later if you want. I've seen as much as a 200% increase in engagements. We've seen up to a 300% increase in conversions in certain verticals if we started the other way first. We made sure that the community was active, the community was healthy, and then we ran ads on behalf of that community. Another trend. Has anybody heard this one yet? If you've been on a call with Facebook or been on anything they've done, they're screaming about automatic placements. And it makes sense. This is kind of like playing by the house rules, right? If you're going to play, you kind of have to, there's sometimes you just have to concede and go, okay, I'm going to do what you're asking me to do. And we used to pick our placements. We're finding more and more and more within Facebook, automatic placements are operating more easily. Approvals are happening easier. Disapprovals are happening less. And performance is reaching at least a static line much faster. Here's another one we're seeing. And this one kind of makes common sense when you think about it. Original imagery is outperforming stock imagery. I remember I kind of made a prediction this was going to happen a couple years ago when we started seeing Facebook was actually putting metadata behind images, right? So those that were visually impaired, it would read to you what the image was. So we know they're already collecting data on the images. And something tells me they see the same image, right? The one of the MacBook, right, with the phone right beside it and the pen, right, the one that everybody uses, right, the aerial shot right over the top. They've seen that image enough. And they're looking for something a little bit different. So we're finding even taking your phone, even taking another image to fulfill what that image asset needs to be is performing better. That is a trend. And we've actually been able to splice that, look at it, and see that's happening in the right way. Another insight. So this one will get a little controversial for some of us probably. But there's a reason why I'm just calling it detailed targeting. When you start to detailed target your audiences, there's a couple things that happens, right? You take a really big audience, you make it really, really small. And the idea is if I have exactly the detailed target I'm looking for, I know how they're going to act, right? We've gone through this whole consumer journey. We've done this persona, and he has to be 5'4". I'm actually taller than that, by the way. He has between 40 and 45, right? He has to have 3 kids. So I'm going to hone right down to this thing. Well, when you hone too much, anytime we decreased our audience size by more than 25%, adding detailed targeting, this is what happened. Our average CPM costs went up almost 33%. Our average cost, our click-through rate, was actually neutral, which kind of makes sense if you think about it, right? There's some other variables there that play. if there's a particular message I want to give and I know exactly who I'm going to give it to, we're going to assume they're going to click through something. It's interesting to the play, though, that Facebook, when you just give them a broad audience, they find the exact same people. One of those stats that I've seen is the top 10% of people that are most likely to click on something on Facebook are 5 times more expensive if you were to try to get their attention through CPM. So it's interesting between those two, even when you hone that down, really that's a pretty neutral piece. Post engagements. This makes sense, right? If I've got a very detailed audience, post engagements grew almost 38%. But what if I wasn't going for post engagements? What if I was going for something else? So at this point, you have to understand, is an average increase in my CPM of almost 33% worth a 38% increase in my engagements? It may be. It all depends on what your goal is, what your objective is there, right? I'm just sharing the data, folks. I'm just sharing you what I got. And the last one I'll tell you is average cost per click. It's almost 25% higher. It's interesting to watch. Again, you may have a different trend, may have something different. If you see something different, let me know. I'd love to take a look at that also. Again, I think I have the fortunate experience working with a really large team. A 50, 60 of us that run on Facebook campaigns and a few thousand campaigns run at a time. So it's always great to find things that we have, kind of see what's out there. I'd love the pressure test. If you find something different, if you want something else that you'd like me to share, please let me know. That's all I have for today. I want to thank you all for letting me be here. You can find me on Twitter up here. You can find me on LinkedIn. To be honest, though, the best way is Facebook Messenger. I think that means I'm old, I think, right? Because Facebook is the best way to get hold of me. But again, it was an absolute pleasure, and I've got just a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, I'll be right over here. Thank you all very much.